What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob. If you're new here, I talk a little bit about everything. So if you like that, stick around a little longer. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the dark side of AI. It's the part that we don't see as the users of artificial intelligence, and that's how we're training the AIs, how we harvest the data, and how that data is categorized or labeled. It's absolutely crucial to how artificial intelligence can get fed the data, and it takes a lot of human intervention to be able to do that. And what a lot of people don't realize is that there are biases that are inadvertently entered into the data, not only just through the data being created itself, but how the data is categorized and labeled and cataloged and then fed into the AI could also introduce certain types of biases. And this is where things can get dangerous. I want to show you a small clip from a 60 Minutes documentary that talks about a company that hires people in Kenya to do this data labeling. And it kind of shows you how they do it. It's actually pretty interesting. I'll only show a clip, but I'll put a link to the full thing below. And then I'm going to show you some history behind these methodologies and why it's dangerous. And then I'm going to connect the dots of what we saw during the lockdowns from 2020 to going into 2023, mid 2022. Some of the techniques or things that were being used to manage content, let's say, on social media platforms. But let me switch over here to the YouTube clip here, and we'll just watch this real quick so you can kind of see what labeling is and kind of how there's like a whole tier of people that nobody knows about that does this. Pretty interesting. So let's watch this real quick.
The robots or the machines, you're teaching them how to think like human and to do things like human.
We met Naftali Wambalo in Nairobi, Kenya, one of the main hubs for this kind of work. It's a country desperate for jobs because of an unemployment rate as high as 67% among young people. So Naftali, father of two, college-educated with a degree in mathematics, was elated to finally find work in an emerging field, artificial intelligence.
So just to kind of finish painting this picture, a lot of these tech companies, they've been doing this before AI, and I'll demonstrate this momentarily, but very highly educated, knowledgeable, well-trained skills in other countries that are economically disadvantaged, so that way they can pay a very low wage and leverage those skills, right? This is nothing new overseas. That's all, pretty common. But this is where it's going to get really, really interesting.
You were labeling.
I did labeling for videos and images.
Naftali and digital workers like him spent 8 hours a day in front of a screen studying photos and videos, drawing boxes around objects and labeling them, teaching the AI algorithms to recognize them.
You would label, let's say, furniture in a house, and you say this is a TV, this is a microwave. So you are teaching the AI to identify these items.
Right.
Okay, so far this is really innocuous. But what happens when you start labeling humans, speech?
And then there was one for faces of people. The color of the face. If it looks like this is white. If it looks like this is black, this is Asian. You're teaching the AI to identify them automatically.
Humans tag cars and pedestrians to teach autonomous vehicles not to hit them. Humans circle abnormalities to teach AI to recognize
I hope
diseases.
the doctors are humans.
Even as AI is getting smarter, humans in the loop will always be needed, because there will always be new devices and inventions that'll need labeling.
So again, apologize for pausing so often, copyright concerns, but that's another important fact, is that we'll always need this skill set. And, new things keep getting invented, but also you have these objects sitting in different environments, different lighting, different angles. Sometimes they're clustered together, sometimes they're individual. And so you need humans to be able to draw these areas so you can see all these lines around the objects to say, hey, these are cans of a particular thing. And then another picture could be, it's a single can of this one thing. So it's really crucial so that AI can understand single objects, grouped objects of the same thing, different angles, different lighting, stuff like that.
You find these humans in the loop not only here in Kenya, but in other countries thousands of miles from Silicon Valley, in India, the Philippines, Venezuela, often countries with large, low-wage populations, well-educated but unemployed.
Honestly, it's like modern-day slavery.
Okay, that's enough. This lady kind of starts getting into don't need no man and all that other stuff. Although the slavery thing I don't disagree with, but yeah, she starts going off into feminism and stuff. But anyway, yeah, I'll put a link to this in the description below because the rest of the document is really interesting. But I just kind of wanted to show you the drawing of the boxes in photos, videos, because it's already easy for the AI to ingest text and recognize things, but doing images and videos is much more intense labor because, you know, the object moves in the video and it helps the AI track objects and things like that. So that's a really crucial skill, but this is where things can go awry. So let's go back a little bit in history because this idea of cataloging came out of a previous skill set that social media and even search engines were using as far back as I think 2010, maybe a little later than that. But there was a documentary that came out in 2018 called The Cleaners. And I tried to find where you could watch it. But if you're in the know, if you sail the high seas, you can find it. That's all I'm going to say about it. But it's not available on any streaming services as of this moment. But there's this idea of content moderation, right? Filtering the content to meet certain community standards, which in and of itself sounds innocuous. But what if your opinion suddenly doesn't meet community standards when it's just an opinion or a well-defined argument? Freedom of speech, right? I mean, there's certain things you don't want floating around the internet, like, you know, animals being harmed or people being harmed or how to build dangerous items and things like that. You know, obviously you'll want to filter that out. But this labeling thing, as well as the cleaning here that I'm going to read this article a little bit, you'll start to see why we had the results that we had in the lockdowns during 2020. So let me read this from The Verge a little bit. The Cleaners is a riveting documentary how social media might be ruining the world. Now remember, this is 2018, so you're going to start to see a different attitude towards social media here. But it's really interesting how this evolved into AI. A look at the content moderators that control what we see turns into a manifesto against the internet itself. We're in a cultural movement where the impact of social media isn't something that we just notice when we catch ourselves head down in our phones and computers. It's something that's understood with almost daily news, stories, with each new revelation seemingly more sinister than the last. So there's that, you know, shock and awe that they always do on social media or news, you know, the clickbait stuff, that's what we call it today. It's so ever present that it can be easy to tune out, which makes the Sundance documentary, The Cleaners, pack such a devastating wallop. Let's see, I'll skip about talking about the filmmaker. The content moderators that work for major platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Google. So note, content moderators. It's the same skill set that, you know, for training AI, by the way. Spending their time looking at every single picture and video that has been flagged for potentially being objectionable. How is it flagged? Who flags it? That's usually people, in the community going, hey, you might want to look at this. But they also rove too and look around. But while revealing the story of those individuals is an interesting place to start, the filmmakers have much bigger ideas that they want to tackle. The movie broadens its scope to cover what the directors clearly see as a real-time global catastrophe. A situation where tech companies are so eager to grow, expand, and monetize that they fail to recognize the ways their platforms are fomenting hate, discord, and violence with devastating results. So it's interesting, like back then, they're worried about hate spreading, right? So what is it about? Ostensibly, The Cleaners is about the outsourced workers that these companies use to determine whether photos and videos that have been shared online should be allowed to stay there. The film tracks a handful of people based in Manila that spend their days looking at terrorist videos, political propaganda, self-harm videos, and child pee, breaking them into binary categories. Ignore, whether they let the post stand, and delete, where the imagery is removed for violating community standards. So again, where is the line? That line of where you keep, where you delete. This is where it can get very dangerous very easily. The documentary makers initially seemed interested in pointing out how poorly conceived the outsourcing of moderation is as a business practice. One of the cleaners that specializes in pee, for example, admits she didn't know anything about it, and maybe not about the act, before she started her job. So she probably was really young. So just think of like the damage that probably did to her psychology. Who knows? Making her an odd choice for her subject matter expert. Another employee who has been told by his supervisor to be extremely vigilant about anything related to ISIS explains to the camera that an infamous photo of an American soldier terrorizing an Abu Ghraib prisoner with a barking dog is actually an image of an ISIS soldier terrifying a captive, and therefore needs to be pulled from the service. So there you go. There's the first instance where the meaning of that infamous picture was twisted. It's an aha moment for anyone who's ever wondered why seemingly innocuous material sometimes disappears off social networks, but the story of the cleaners and the tragic long-term impact of watching such horrific material day in and day out is the only vehicle for the film's larger ambitions. So this idea of the psychological damage of doing this to the workers, that's also explored in the 60 Minutes documentary to great depth. And that was actually the original reason why they made it, was because the workers were being exposed to a lot of Western culture that is not healthy. Let's just leave it there. What's it really about? Simply put, it's how social networking platforms have created a feedback loop that is irrevocably harming our real-world social fabric. Reesvik and Block pull in journalists, ethicists, and former employees of various tech companies to offer a macro perspective on how the platforms have been designed and what impact they are actually having on our global discourse. So here, this is where we're going to start connecting the dots. The filmmakers also thread in footage from the Senate hearings held last year with top legal executives from Google, Facebook, and Twitter. The latter ends up playing like a lot of obfuscation and hand-waving on the part of tech companies, but as the film explains, there's a reason for that. So here we go. Because remember, this is a very different time with social media. There's no AI, and the whole there's like a big like social media arms race going on at this time. It's because the platforms in question have been expressly designed to generate interest and engagement above all else. And it's in a platform's best interest to never show a user news or information that would truly challenge their world view or turn them off, leading to insular bubbles where people are only fed the information they already want to see. So here we go. So there's that first dot that falls into place. I talked about in my how algorithms affect our lives behind the scenes video that I released a couple videos ago, where if we're not careful, we get stuck in these algorithmic bubbles and only hear opinions that match our own opinion. which can have long-term effects when you get exposed to other forms of debate and other opinions that differ from yours. But what's interesting here, if you notice this line here, where it's written in kind of a more innocent, positive way, where the platforms have been expressly designed to generate interest and engagement above all else, which eventually turned into push the narrative, push the agenda, because it's the exact same technology, the exact same skill sets that were used to do that. And what happened was during the lockdowns, AI became this tool to do this at a large, massive scale, so they no longer have to have the humans do it. So that's where this gets really scary is, back in 2018, humans were doing a lot of this work. Fast forward to just 2 years later, now we have AIs doing a lot of this content creation. And I've got another video coming up soon where I'm going to show that the reason why this happened so fast is not because the social media platforms built these tools independently. It turns out that DARPA invented these tools and gave them to the social media platforms to use. But anyway, I just wanted to show you some of these dots floating around out there that I noticed. And, we've been noticing, especially as content creators, how our content can be heavily tempered through automated systems where it checks to see if we violate copyright automatically, checks to see if we're compliant to community guidelines automatically, advertiser guidelines, all kinds of things, all automatically. And then if something goes amiss, we say, hey, can you bring in a human and take a look at it? So the humans, as 60 Minutes documentary always says, the humans need to be in the loop and they will always need to be there, at least for the time being. But anyway, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I want to hear your comments below. What do you think about this? Are there more dots that I haven't connected that maybe you see out there? In the meantime, hope to catch you in the next one. And until then, peace.